On an annual basis, we take 2 days where we step back, look at our goals, really define what do we want to accomplish this year? What is our 1, 3, 5, 10-year goal? And on that was both diversification and succession planning. So it was only through that, through taking the days, and it's just a couple days, and having actually someone from the outside come in and help facilitate so you stay on track and focused on the conversation. It was through that, writing it on paper and coming back and checking on it on a quarterly basis, moving forward with our goals, that we were able to bring many things to light. And in fact, going back 7 years and doing this process, pretty much everything that we have written down has come to fruition. It is wild to look back and see, including our big, hairy, audacious goal was to be NHQ, National Housing Quality Award Gold. It's a Herculean effort to go through, and ultimately we ended up with gold.
Way to go. It's interesting. So a lot of companies will pay to have, here's our pretty business plan. Here's our mission statement, because that was all cool once upon a time. It's all done. And they put it in a drawer somewhere and they forget about it. And you've discovered that it's a living document. And once you memorialize it by putting something on paper and you revisit it, it's like that compass that tells you, if you're savvy enough to look at it, that you're on track or you're way off course.
Right. Yeah. I can't underscore the importance of the investment of time to sit back and assess things.
Welcome to the Builder Straight Talk podcast with your host, Michael Creasa. Get the unfiltered truth from the trenches of construction, real estate, and funding. This episode is made possible by our parent company, Sound Capital. Funding built for builders.
Hey there, Cammie. How you doing today?
I'm great, Michael. How are you?
Excellent. I want to jump right into the conversation that we talked about because you really intrigued me. You have such a diverse background, which has led you into building and renovations and all kinds of wonderful stuff. So I know that our builder audience is going to glean a lot from this conversation today. So let's rewind it. I almost want to say that it was predestined that you were going to be a builder because you would be the third generation, but it took you a long time to get down that path. So let's rewind it. You're an eager little girl, but you're kind of watching what daddy does. Let's kind of start from there. And how did it evolve to the point where we are today that you're running this company or
Sure.
integral part of the company?
Gosh, that's a long story. So I'll try and give a high level version of it. But ultimately, yes, growing up, my grandparents were in the business. So I'll start there. I remember going to the office with my dad's dad, and on breaks, he would take me to cross the street, the Circle K, getting Bit of Honey. And so every time I see Bit of Honey, I think of him. But ultimately, I remember going to job sites with my dad. That was kind of the weekend, driving all the projects. And then once the time came for me to decide what I wanted to do for a career, I would say it's challenging to have, it's a pro con, it's challenging to have parents that are so successful and following in their shoes and wanting to feel confident and standing on your own 2 feet was something that was a focus of mine, trying to figure out what would provide me a sense of confidence. And that took me down the path of not starting in the family business. Now, I worked there in high school filing, invoices, so I got a feeling for the landscape, but ultimately, I wanted to prove to myself that I could have a career and really didn't have a long-term goal of working in the family business. So I started my career working at a news station, had an internship. It was an amazing first job. I got to work in every department of the news station and then worked there for a couple years. Outgrew that role, is more or less working on the sales side, helping support the sales team and justifying the dollars that they were charging based off of the demographics of who viewership. So I put presentations together for that. And then I was trying to decide if I wanted to go back to grad school. I got a degree in communications. After the 2 years at the news station, was trying to figure out, I was at this intersection of what do I do next? I wanted to challenge myself more. So was it go to grad school or what else was out there? And I knew I liked sales. So I had figured that part out. In my quest to kind of figure out what that next step was, I started meeting with some of my parents' friends just to hear what their counsel was. And I met with this woman, Nora Hanna, who was a president of a company called Landiscore. I was really impressed by her, just her demeanor and her insight, and had a great conversation. And the company was basically, they do aerial photographs of land on one page. And then there is data on the opposite page that said, these are how many homes are being built here. These are the square footages and just even commercial stuff. That was kind of my entree of the conversation I had with her, was getting insight into her world, but at the same time, they actually had a position available at her job. And it was on the market research side, the market research, the data that corresponded with the aerial photographs. And it was through that conversation that I ended up interviewing with the company and landed a job in a sales role. And I was covering Phoenix, Vegas, and Tucson. And basically, I was selling this product that was the market research component, again, of the aerial. That market research data was also put into a software package that developers could use to help in their due diligence of looking at a particular site. There is a mapping interface to it. You could do like a 20-mile radius looking at a particular site and saying, how is the sales activity for these particular builders with this square footage? And like 150 variables that they accounted for. And so I covered Phoenix, Vegas, Tucson, loved it. That job really felt like my first career job, and worked there for over a year. Encountered kind of a unique experience, or maybe not too unique, but I had a situation with, I don't know how much I would get into it, but a situation with a boss that made me feel uncomfortable. Let's just put it this way, he's going through a divorce, and what turned from I love my job turned to, ooh, this feels really uncomfortable, but not sure what to do with it. At that time, there was a land broker who was a client and also a family friend, and he found out that I was just not quite comfortable with what I was, the culture of the business that I was at. And he said, "Well, why don't you come in and talk to me?" It's just kind of like all these little doors open. And so I went in and talked to him. And this person, Nate Nathan, is one of the largest land brokers in Arizona. And he has an amazing reputation, treats his employees like gold. And I didn't really do a lot of due diligence myself in terms of what the job scope would be. I just knew that he was like the best boss to work for. So like, okay, well, I'm in this situation, so I'm going to go to that situation. And
Guess what,
ultimately,
Cammie? You're making coffee and lunch now for the rest of your life, but you're gonna enjoy doing it, you know?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. But ultimately, that job, I'm so giving you the long history, and I'll land here in a second. But that job entitled going to Nate is very good about market research. He had his own program where he went to municipalities, found out who was going through the entitlement process, what the status was, and he had people that were in charge of filling the market research. And so he had me go and do some of the legwork for finding data. And I quickly found out that I really like people and really enjoy the sales side of things. And I was kind of at another crossroad of teeing the road as far as now I love the who I was working for, but didn't really like the job. So before I loved the job, had some challenges with who I was working for, and here we are. So I was confused. I was confused on where do I go? What do I do? And at that point, I literally like the money was amazing, but I actually went through a little depression, just kind of identifying who am I? What do I want to do with my life? And at that point, my dad said, well, why don't you come and just check out working with us? I
Well, how old are you at the time then, Cammie?
so I was in my late 20s at that time.
So you're still I've got underwear older than you then. So you're basically just a kid trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm putting a lot of pressure on myself all the while, again, because when you have, very successful parents, it just seems like, "Oh, that's what you're supposed to do, just be successful." I don't know what, but you need to be successful. So,
So were
anyway,
both your parents, and sorry for jumping in here,
yeah.
were they working together in the business, like your mom and dad
Yes.
partnership? Okay.
Yes. Yes. So I'll say I ended up working with my parents, came into Camelot and have been here for 20 years, and there's been no turning back. However, to your question with my parents, so both my grandparents worked together and my parents worked together. So, which that I think is a unicorn, in of itself, in that they were successful in working together. They both complemented each other in where their deficiencies of compensate for each other's deficiencies, or so. But it was interesting growing up in that so many dinner conversations and conversations within the house were about home building. So going back to the jobs that I mentioned leading into working at Camelot, or what became Cameron Custom, it was like connecting dots from all the dinner conversations. Like, oh, that's how that works. Oh, that's like things came to life, which was kind of fun. So
Have you pulled your husband into it, or he's doing his own thing?
he is into his own thing. He has a CPA firm, and I've seen my parents work, and they still work together to this day. But at some level, I actually like having my space and having my own lane and coming home and having it be something different, but it's not that I don't know, one day I'm 50, so it's not like I have a huge runway, but I don't know if one day he would get involved, but for now, he has his own CPA firm.
Yeah, it's an interesting mix because I don't want to say a lot, but you'll see the builder predominantly. He's the guy, he's doing whatever, and the wife will do the logistics in the back end, maybe the
Mhm,
bookkeeping and accounting. And but you've got to find that balance, that it's not always about work, because if it's with you 24/7, you're lying in
mhm.
bed trying to have sex and you're talking about nails and whatever. Like,
Well, that conversation never comes up with my parents. I put my ears between my fingers between my ears, although there was growing up, my parents did try to have very detailed places where they would stop work conversation. I remember at one point, it was like 96th Street, we're stopping work conversations. Like, that's it. That's the boundary. So,
that's great. So do you find that for you, do you have a balance? Like, you seem like you're very driven.
mm,
When you latch onto something that you like, it's all encompassing.
I'm not
Am I
balanced.
okay,
I'll
so
be
you're all or nothing. Is that kinda how that works?
so I will say it ebbs and flows. I think there's different chapters maybe in your life, or this is what I am witnessing to life, is I feel like there are different chapters in your life where you really hyper focus on different aspects. And for me right now also having started this custom vision within my family's business for the past 5 years, it's definitely work has taken up more of my time. And I think right now the pedal is to the metal, but I hope to be able to ease up a little bit, because I think there is something to be said about having balance, and it makes you I know ultimately it makes you a better worker when you have balance. Or I don't know if balance is such a right word, because I don't know if we all can have balance, but I think just
Maybe
knowing
having a
that.
life that you can actually, like, you've got the work, you've got family, you wanna go to the gym, I wanna read
Yeah.
a book, maybe just go to the beach. So I know balance is kind of like an Oprah cliche, if you will, but
Yeah.
I don't know a better word for that. Having a life,
Yeah.
maybe,
Yeah.
something all encompassing.
I'm working on that in my head, as I've been very just hyper focused on work. Like, okay, this is a chapter. It's not going to be this way forever. And I have a goal of it not being this way forever. So I need to really be true to myself and honor that, internal conversation.
We'll come back to the custom side. Let's go back to Camelot. Is it fair to say that you're the queen of the lake, holding the sword in the true story of Camelot?
So just a little squirrel moment on that. Ironically, my grandparents, when they started the business, they didn't know what they were gonna call it, and my dad had just come home from seeing the movie Camelot, and he said, "I know what we can call it, Camelot, 'cause it's the perfect place to live." So,
So your dad was Richard Harris then. He was the king. Was it Richard Harris that was
I
the
don't
king, I think?
I don't I was I I'm old, but I guess I'm not that old because I don't remember.
So I'll go back to my default. I'm older than you. I've got underwear older than you that I still wear. So we'll leave it at that,
Okay,
Cabbie, for
I'll
now.
trust you.
Let's go back to, so you're in the family business now, and you've
Mhm,
got this eclectic skill set that you've picked up along the way. You're a communications major. You've got a passion for marketing and advertising. You did, I don't want to say software, but you did the technology side of
mhm,
mapping and pulling data together. So I take it
mhm,
that you're an odd duck in that you're spatial, right?
mhm.
But you strike me as being very analytical too. Do those two come together?
Are you asking a question or is that a statement? Sorry.
Prove me wrong, maybe. I'm just, from what I'm gathering, you've got this eclectic skill set, which is very rare,
Mm,
that you can see the data, but at the same
mhm.
time, you're a big thinker, emotionally and analytically, putting the two together.
I don't know if I can have that perspective to provide you. Maybe someone else can say, "Yeah, that is Cammie's skill set." But I would say the evolution of going from that experience of looking at data has definitely been a foundation to work from and understand, "Hey, we gotta look at the data, look at the numbers." So I find myself just reflecting from time to time, how is the market? How are things looking? And I think as a business leader, that's important, insight to continue getting a pulse on.
So let's jump on that for a second. So that's the skill set you brought over to Camelot. How was it received that, our daughter has come home to work in the family business? Did you have to, how do I word this? Did you have to fight for your position to prove that you actually knew what you were talking about, as opposed to, "Oh, well, let's just give her some toys and let her do whatever." And I don't mean that in a
Yeah.
derogatory
Yeah,
way,
no,
but
it's a fair when you're in a family business, there's so many dynamics that come into play, and how much of it is your parents kind of driving that or your own internal narrative because you've put in your head, you're perceiving things in a certain way that aren't even legit. But I would say for myself, yes, I felt like I had to prove myself. I had to prove to my father, who is very much someone just walking by, is very much, I don't know if you're familiar with the disc profile, but he is like off the charts D, like literally off the charts D. And so everything is real quick and just give it to me and what's going and what's going to be the next thing. And in addition to that, he sometimes would get into the weeds of some things. So it was challenging for me to feel confident under that energy with my dad, and it took me time to kind of find confidence within myself and feel solid within myself to know I have the information, I have the intellect to be able to give my insight and give perspective, but it took a long time for me to settle into that.
was there, like, for lack of a better word, an aha
Oh,
moment when
yeah, there was a big
you've
aha.
taken it and you said, "Yeah, this is me. I own this now."
Well, there are 2 aha moments. The one is kind of a funny one. So, the first one was when I was working really close with my dad on sales and marketing, and there's a period of time where we had this community, it's called White Horse. It's was garnered a ton of attention here in the local market, and we were at the point of putting signage up. It was in the infancy of the community, and there was a site sign that there was like a 5-foot difference in terms of location. I had it installed in one spot, and my dad's like, "Oh, no, I need it installed like this," and it was such a subjective thing that I told him. It was the first time I was 40, and I told him, and I'm like, "Are you kidding me? I can't make a decision," excuse my language, but about a fucking sign? Like, it was so liberating, and I would say that was one of those changing moments where I kind of felt like I could speak for myself, and we both kind of jumped back, I think. The other aha moment was when one of my first customs where I had a team around me, and by team for the client, the architect, the interior designer, the landscape architect, all at the table at the beginning of the project where it was like, let's hear the client's vision. It was just the most dreamy experience of this is how this is done. And then I had a sign installed that said Cameron Custom shortly before that. And I just looked at the sign and looked at the people. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is pretty cool. I just had to pinch myself.
Wow, you've come a long way.
Thank you.
Wow, 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 wow. I'm trying to think of a question to go there, but I'm actually feeling what I'm trying to feel what you have experienced because you're now commanding the table. It's like you're the captain of the enterprise, and
Hmm.
now all eyes are on you on in terms of the direction. So ultimately, in the company, let's go back a step. You're in Arizona. Is there
Hmm.
a specific area that you guys specialize in?
So it's the metro area, Maricopa County, within both the custom and traditional side. North Scottsdale, we have some North Scottsdale is a huge market for us, and then
Okay.
outside of Scottsdale, we have some projects in Peoria, Phoenix, PV, an area called Gilbert.
Can I, on average, how many doors would you do per year?
So on the traditional side, I will say we are building somewhere between or closing somewhere between 40 and 60 homes a year, and then on the custom side, I have 10 homes that are under construction right now. It's in backlog.
So is the custom site, is that your baby versus
Mhm.
Camelot?
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to ask, so everything's going great, I take it, but then you get this notion that you want to take it in a different direction, or there's, it's almost like you, since we're talking about Camelot, it's
Yeah.
the archetype of the hero's journey. There's something calling you to greatness, right? So you're not happy with where you're sitting. It's almost like Star Wars. There's the message, Queen Leia is in trouble, and it's almost like this message is coming to Cammie. There's more out there in is it something like that?
Love
Like,
it.
what was it that pulled you from where you
There was
were to where you are?
there's an internal calling. I would say there was a collective trifecta. So I did have a yearning to be able to spread my wings a little bit more from what I was experiencing working with my dad. He's just a very strong personality. So it's hard to grow and make decisions under him or beside him. And so we at the same time had talked about in a strategic planning session, we work off of EOS. We follow traction, the entrepreneur operating system. We follow traction. And we had about 7 or 8 years ago, we started working with a consultant for that program, and we put a 10-year vision of being cycle protected by 2030. That was kind of we all had been around when in '08 when that occurred, and so that we all have scars from that. And as we were just developing the business, looking at the 1, 3, 5-year, 10-year vision, what did that look like? And we came up with being cycle protected, which included, like, what are ideas with that label and custom, remodel, single family rental communities. There is just a potpourri of ideas that came up. And so I kind of latched on to the custom remodel. And there was a period of time where, well, I don't know how detailed we want to go, but I mentioned as a trifecta. So I definitely had a calling. We had this experience of just strategic planning. And then I had a girlfriend that reached out who was a friend of a friend and bought a Camelot home that was from like the 1970s, hadn't been touched. And this was in like 2015 ish, 16. And she reached out and said, "Hey, Cammie, would you be interested? Just bought this house. Would you be interested in doing a remodel?" And we hadn't really touched that category. And with all of this behind me, it kind of was like just fell into my lap, the opportunity to do this remodel. And so I was very transparent with her and just said, "Hey, you know, I'm green at this. let's see how it goes. And she was ready for the ride. And so that was really the beginning of my journey. And at that time, I was pulling resources from the mothership, from Camelot. And really, I would say I did her remodel. I did a few more remodels. So I started with remodels. And then I was pulling from the resources from the mothership. And then around 3 years ago, I two another thing happened. My brother got involved in the business. My brother, who wanted nothing to do with the business, came, got involved, mentioned to my dad, "Hey, I'd like to be doing what Cammie's doing." And my dad said, "Well," and that was sales and marketing, my dad, and doing the remodels on the side. And my dad said, "Well, that's fine, but you need to ask Cammie." And so that was really the push to have the conversation with my parents as far as, "Hey, I'm okay if he wants to do that. That will free me up to really focus on this custom remodel division." So that was around 2020. And then around about 3 years ago, I guess that'd be 2022, I started hiring my own team and really professionalized it. And that's here we are today.
Did you already have an eye for the remodeling side? Like, let's put a bathroom here. We need marble tile there. Like, was that something already instilled in you, or
I wouldn't say from a design perspective, I grew up with a father and a mother, but mostly a father that was really into design, but he was never the one that was dreaming it up. He would find the talent and have the talent execute the job. And so that's more the model that I am under. I so appreciate people that can dream up, design, and if someone presents a couple options, I have enough, I believe, design talent to say, "Okay, that will look good." But to dream it up, no, it's more for me, it was more the opportunity to have a business and the systems and processes and the people and the infrastructure of a business that I was interested in challenging myself to see if I could, execute on.
I just love the fact. Okay, I got no experience at this. I got no eye for it. Are you still friends with this girl? Like,
I am. I
and
am.
so obviously it was a success story. It turned
Yeah.
out well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there were definitely bumps in the road. It wasn't like a smooth process, but she was patient and had confidence, and I think had really confidence that we would get it done and do the right thing. And that at the end of the day for me is everything. I may not know exactly how to do something, but I know that I can find the resources to help me complete it, and just hope that people have patience with me along the way. And I think I'm a very straightforward, ethical person, so I think people trust me, and I haven't done anything to have them not trust me. So
You would make for, I was going to say good king, but obviously a good queen. You're smart enough to have a vision, right? Obviously, you've got a command that people respect, but it's not about your ego because you
mm-mm,
made it very clear that if I don't know the answers, I'm going to surround myself with the people that do. So you're not
mhm,
threatened by people that may be
mm-mm,
smarter than you. You're
mm-mm,
wise enough to harness that in your
yeah,
little kingdom,
yeah.
milking this Camelot narrative as far as we can go. And, so I applaud you. Way to
Thank
go.
you. I would
Way to
say
go.
that's something that was really instilled in me in my upbringing was hire people that are smarter than you. Well, it was hard for me to feel confident with my father, who I just think the world of and think he knows, he's all knowing. I have a sense of confidence being around people and then actually inspiration and excitement when I'm around people that are talented in their lane. And to bring all those people together is what gives me joy.
I'm wondering if under your father's influence, I'm not saying, it made you tough like Clint Eastwood, you're going to walk into a bar and take on a brawl. But within the construction trades, you need to be tough so people
Mhm,
are going to respect you. And I'm not saying
mhm,
just because you're a woman, but you are a woman. So there's that part of the process. Do you find that under your, I don't want to say under your father's shadow, because it sounds kind of
mhm.
condescending in that respect.
It's
But
actually my mother. Let me
okay.
let me let me add a little twist, a plot twist. So, My mom, she can be spicy. She's very direct. So going back to that disc analogy, if for people that know it, she is a CD. So she's very precise and driven. And she has been a huge role model for me in just being confident in herself. I'll give you another example of something. You think I've got like just a sailor's mouth or trucker's mouth, which I probably do, but that is from my mom as well. So I was at a networking event. It was for architects, and there was an architect that I wanted to meet, and I walked up to him, and he turned to me and just kind of did like this one over saying, "Oh, so who are you, the marketing person?" And I said, "No, I'm the fucking owner." And so it's kind of like I there's just something inside me that I'm very soft and kind and warm, but there's just a visceral like, "No, this is who I am, and I'm confident with it, and let's move on." And so he just gave me a cheers and chuckled, and I feel like I earned his respect with that. So,
I think the old adage is be yourself because everyone else is taken,
yeah.
right? So that and I'd rather have an authentic Cammie, a bit bruised around the edges and worn around, but, like, you cut it say it the way you mean it, and
Mhm.
it seems like you and I suffer from the same affliction that I can be thinking I call it a Homer Simpson moment where my brain is 2 steps ahead of my mouth, and then I have to wonder, "Okay, did I think that out loud or did I actually say it?"
Yeah.
And when I was public speaking, I maybe have 1,000 realtors at a time. That's not a good thing to have
Yeah.
because they will let you know pretty quickly. Wow.
Aw.
Getting back to your mom, I'm really fascinated that so it almost if the roles were reversed, that if your mom was as strong as your father, rather than holding you down, she actually encouraged you. So you actually garnered the strength from your mom
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I
applied
guess you
that.
would say that. I never really thought of it from that perspective. It's interesting when you do these conversations, just the reflecting back on life. Yeah, I would
Because you
say
could have the opposite, which is the mother. I'm sure you probably heard this concept of the devouring mother. So what they do is, if your dad is that strong, and
mhm.
you're trying to compete in your dad's world, the instinct would be for your mother to hug you and care for you and protect you from the big bad wolf that is your
Yeah.
father. But in
No.
that aspect of smothering you, she's not allowing you to be released into the world to fall down, pick yourself up, make your mistakes, and learn from them. So it actually inhibits you from blossoming into the person that you become.
Yeah, if anything, it was the best dynamic of role models to have because my dad is a very strong businessman. Like there's some people that you come across and you can just feel it. He's one of those. And my mom it was able to navigate and be her own person, have her own strengths, and there are times when they butt heads on decisions, and some of those butting of heads where my mom went ahead and my dad was giving his, like, putting his heels in the sand, my mom kept pushing, and we've had a couple of really awesome successes as a result, so I witnessed firsthand that, while my dad is really strong, he isn't necessarily all-knowing, and there is room for different insight and opinions, and, you take that and run with it.
It's like the perfect Arizona metaphor. Your dad's the mountain, and your mother's the stream that wears him out and
Yep.
goes around, right? Yeah, wow.
100%.
Wow, wow,
100%.
wow.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
your dad's still obviously in the trades now, like he's still running the company and
So we have on the Camelot side, we have a professional team of COO, CFO that run the day to day. He is now he's not old. My dad was 20 when he had me, so he's 70 or just gonna be 72, and he's one of those that hasn't worked a day in his life, so I don't see him ever retiring, but he isn't here 24/7. He is out golfing, and so I don't know if I answered your question.
no, that's good. So he's not in he oversees it, but he's not swinging a hammer.
Yeah, and this goes
He's
back to
yeah.
the observation for me of witnessing my parents, just the ebb and flow of life. Like, there are times when work was really intense, and now I can see them kind of enjoying life more. So I know that there are different chapters of life where work is a little more tense, kids are more intense, and it's just like giving yourself the grace not to judge yourself too much of, "Oh my gosh, I'm too focused on this or too focused on that." I think having the ability to step back and say, "It's okay. This is what it is right now," and not judge yourself so hard.
Yeah, I guess the big question is what's the why? Why are you doing this? Are you trying to build a legacy? Are you doing this because you want to get rich? Because there's got to be more to it than just building homes, because that's the
Yeah.
vehicle that's taking you somewhere. I guess the
So I
question is,
would
what's that somewhere?
I would say my biggest why is just like to learn. I love people. And this is a vehicle to test myself and see, it's at the end of the day, the product is pretty amazing that you get to witness from dirt to a family moving into their home. That in of itself is amazing. But really, I don't know what it is. I was not a good student, and it took me until college to figure out how to learn, and ever since that point, I found a rhythm of pushing myself and learning, and the high that you get from that, like, there's a sense of accomplishment that I just love. So, definitely this
There,
business is not easy. There are
there, there,
days
there-
I'm like,
yeah, there's an aspect to it that builders they either gloss over or they don't realize it. You kind of tapped on it, open the door, so to speak, because we are talking about
yeah,
construction. That you talk about the feeling that you get when families are moving into the house, right?
mm,
But builders, I don't want I'm still looking for this word, maybe you can help me. I don't wanna say hero, because when I think hero, I think of a fireman, a soldier,
yeah,
somebody that sees, "Okay, there is danger," right? The big
right.
sign says danger, and instead of instinctively turning around and running for the buckwheat like everybody else would, they turn around, they run right into it. Like a firefighter runs in, and they know what the perils are that could be potentially waiting on the other side. But they do it anyways because they know the great benefit and good that they're bringing to
I
that
love
person, but
this
they don't.
analogy.
Yeah,
I'm
but
gonna
they don't
use this in
qualify.
my next
Yeah,
business meeting.
so they don't quantify that in their head. It's almost in I don't want to say it's instinctive, because if you have no fear, you're
Yeah,
stupid,
yeah,
right?
you wanna
By
have
definition.
fear. No,
Yeah, because
there's
fear is the rudder, but let me finish off this metaphor.
yeah.
So where I'm going with this is with builders. You build this house and you forget how many people, how many lives that you impact, because you've got your employee, right? You've got trades. You've got your suppliers that you buy from. You've got the restaurant down the street or the coffee truck that comes in. Everybody that you touch is somehow benefiting from the fact that Tammy's little lily white foot has touched the ground. But then when you take that onto the other side from the people that have bought one of your homes, right? I don't know how easy it is for you to put what's an average price point for a home?
So, on for the custom right now, we're about, like, let's say 4 or 5,000,000, 5,000,000.
Okay, let's go down to average person. Let's say even 700,000.
Mhm.
Like, like I've got that in my back pocket. But average appreciation in a normal market, usually about 10%, give or take. So at the end of that first year, they've got 70,000 in equity.
Mhm.
Now, I don't know about you, but I'd be hard pressed to try to sock away 70 grand a year. So what you're actually doing, not only have you put a roof over their head, but you're building sustainable, what's the word? Not
Well,
family
equity,
wealth,
they're
an
just
equity,
yeah,
but it's equity. It's a legacy.
yeah,
So I can
yeah,
either now hand this house off to my kids,
yeah,
or at the end of it, I can cash out. Now I've got like $1 million in the bank. That's the thing that builders forget about, that
yeah.
impact that they have on the financial stability that they're creating for families and everybody around them.
It's a vehicle to that. It is a
And
vehicle
I
to that.
can't think of that word. What's the word that would manifest that would best encapsulate that? I still
Mm.
am struggling to figure out what that word would be.
I don't know if I'm gonna come up with the word right at this moment, but it is definitely doesn't it doesn't fall, on me as far as observing everything that you just communicated. When I come to the sites and I see the trades and see all the trucks, or we have trade appreciation parties, and to see how many people's lives are impacted. I mean, it is amazing, and there's a sensation that just is so all-consuming in gratitude to be able to have the ability to make that kinda impact is really epic. And then for me, one of my, first customs that I did with this team, I just recently closed, and it was a house that was on a side of a mountain, so it took a long time to get the site work done, and this family was just so sweet, and they are very spiritual to the point that they had a prayer room. And during the changeover from us giving them the keys, they included me in kind of a ceremony, and it was just like it brought tears to my eyes, just the beauty of it, and to be able to be part of that. And then in addition, their kids gave me tours of where their rooms are gonna be, and it made the struggle so worthwhile.
Well, there's your impact. Again, going back to being the benevolent queen over your subjects, like, way to go. Wow. I don't know where to take it from that. That's such a great story. Actually, I do. I've got a thought here. So, how is the company? I don't want to say divided, but ultimately, your
Mhm,
mother and father are going to step aside. Is the legacy going to continue through you? Like,
mm.
is it set up in such a way that you're buying the company, you've invested with your time, or is it going to be positioned in such a way that it's a sale to investors? Has that been thought out?
It has, and I would say I will have more to that story. It hasn't been publicly announced how that transition is
Yeah.
taking place, but if you wanna have round 2 of this conversation, probably in September, I can tell you what's behind that door, but it has been thought out. Yeah.
The reason I ask that is many builders don't think that far through because
Mhm.
for some builders, it's a glorified job. It's something that they go to every day.
Mhm.
And the sad truth is, a builder tries to balance so many different things, as you discovered when you came into the business. I'm the accountant. I do the invoices. I do the specs. I do, changeovers. Like, yeah, you're doing everything. And as a result of it, you're consumed in this gelatinous mass
Mhm.
and you don't have the freedom to step back and go, okay, where do I want to take this thing? And so I can't say it's mine, but Michael Gerber E-Myth said it that if I'm working in the business, I never have the opportunity to step back and work on the
On the
business.
business. Yeah, and that is so, so, so critical. So we, as I mentioned earlier, we work off of this EOS, entrepreneur operating system, and whether it be that or something else, we do take on a quarterly basis, we take a day to just kind of step back, look at our goals. Well, I should say on an annual basis, we take 2 days where we step back, look at our goals, really define what do we want to accomplish this year? What is our 1, 3, 5, 10 year goal? And on that was both diversification and succession planning. So it was only through that, through taking the days, and it's just a couple days, and having actually someone from the outside come in and help facilitate so you stay on track and focused on the conversation. It was through that writing it on paper and coming back and checking on it on a quarterly basis. How are we, moving forward with our goals that we were able to bring many things to light. And in fact, going back 7 years and doing this process, pretty much everything that we have written down has come to fruition. It is wild to look back and see, including, I don't know if you're familiar with our big, hairy, audacious goal was to be NHQ, National Housing Quality Award Gold. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's through Pro Builder. It's a Herculean effort to go through, and ultimately we ended up with gold. So I can unpack that more, but yeah.
Way to go. It's interesting. So a lot of companies will pay to have, here's our pretty business plan. Here's our mission statement, because that was all cool once upon a time. It's all done. And they put it in a drawer somewhere and they forget about it. And you've discovered that it's a living document. And once you memorialize it by putting something on paper, and you revisit it, it's like that compass that tells you if you're savvy enough to look at it, that you're on track or you're way off
Right.
course.
Right. Yeah. I can't underscore the importance of the investment of time and really taking the time to sit back and assess things.
Well, if you're sitting back, somebody else is gonna eat your lunch, right? So it's all about being strategic and you've got
Mhm.
the plan. So speaking of lunch and no free lunches, you obviously have sweat equity in the company, right? And you've worked your way up the ladder. And I'm trying to say this respectfully.
Yeah.
Your brother shows up and says, "Hey, mom and dad, I want to work in the company. What's in it for
Yeah.
me?" Like how does that impact you? Because obviously you've earned your spot, as you've
Yeah.
clearly said, because you've been in your dad's shadow and
Yeah.
you had the aha moment to push him back. And kid brother just shows up and says, "Okay, where do I sit?"
Yeah. I would say the similar to my parents having separate lanes to focus on, the benefit of my brother coming into the business is he is very design savvy. So when he we have a gentleman that's worked I'm telling the story and it all sounds like rainbows and unicorns and we have our struggles, but I will say some things have really worked out for us. And there's a gentleman that has been my dad's sidekick for he's worked in the business for 40 years and he was the design person for my dad. So who was gonna fill those shoes is always a question for me because I too rely so much on his name is Mike Brecky. I adore him. He's like a brother from another mother. Anyway, my brother who wanted nothing, ironically, nothing to do with the family business. Like, I was indifferent, but he starts growing up, if we talked about family business, he would stop everyone and say, "We're not talking about that." He was a musician, and upon graduating from college, after my dad invested my parents collectively invested a ton in his education, he wanted to be a musician, and my dad is just like, "What? What?" And my mom reminded my dad to just, you want your kids to be happy. Well, 10 years down the road now he's 10 years younger than me, so 10 years down the road of him in the music industry, he's able to be self-sufficient, so, he did succeed from that perspective, but it does not provide the lifestyle that he grew up with, and this is, like, someone that is not materialistic, but 10 years down the road wanted to start a family and get married, and they weren't the women that he was interested in definitely weren't interested in I hate to say the wedding singer, but the wedding singer. And so there was a day when my parents were out golfing and they were talking about work and my brother was there and they talked about needing a sales associate for a particular community. Trent opened his mouth and said, "Well, I'd be interested." And we all like our jaws just hit the floor. And when I heard that, I was like, he's going to be our Mike Brecky because of that creative, and he has. It's come to fruition. Now, there are challenges because, we still have Mike, we still have my brother Trent, and then we have my dad, and so sometimes there are too many cooks in the kitchen and who ultimately gets to say on what the design is gonna be on particular things. This is on the traditional side. That has its own, challenges that we have to work through, but at the end of the day, having my brother on board has been a blessing. So,
So and you don't have to answer this because obviously to be continued in September when we talk about the legacy of where it goes. Does your brother have to buy in to the company? And I'm asking this question
yeah.
because this is a common path that many
Yeah.
builders will come down. They've got a sibling that's working in the business. There's two at home that have no interest in it
Mhm.
whatsoever. But how do you divide up the kingdom when that time comes that parents
Sure.
no longer want to be there?
So there's the overarching business and buying into that, but what my parents did, I don't know if this will help anyone. So I went have ownership on the custom division and started that side of the business. Then my brother worked on a community and my parents created there's an LLC for me, there's an LLC for my brother. And he gained ownership on that. So it's kind of like a stepping stone in terms of
So
ownership to the
is each community then an LLC? Is that how
each
you
community isn't an LLC
okay.
for on the traditional side, yeah, the business.
So he
So,
then, in essence, was a company within the company,
yes.
kind of
Yep,
like you. So everything's dependent on the mothership.
yep, yep,
Okay.
and then, again, I will gladly share if everything all the stars align, what we end up doing. It's still within the family, let me just put it that way. It's not we're selling to an outside, like a, you know, private investor or anything like that, so
Yeah, I guess where I'm going with it, there's actually a plan in place that, again, siblings don't feel disjointed or left
mhm,
out. But
mhm.
then you, as the sweat equity person, don't. And I don't like make it sound like you're being cheated, but
Yeah,
you've
no,
worked for this. You know what I mean? Yeah.
no, I mean, there definitely has been periods of time where it's like information comes up. I have felt a little unsettled as far as how is this gonna be handled, and we worked it through. So, to a space that seems relatively fair.
So the fact that no shots have been fired, everything's working okay.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yes.
let's knock on wood on that one.
Yes.
Um, let's talk a little bit about money. When you guys are doing your spec builds, are you funding with investors? Are you doing it internally? Like having your own skin in the game? Are you using banks? What's your relationship with money to be able to fund a project?
So, right now, it's been basically internal. Been investing internally. However, we are going to within the custom side, right now, I mentioned I have 10 homes that are in the ground. 2 of those have been specs, and we just have with the internal resources, we've been able to use the equity within the company. In the long run, we will get a line of credit from a bank to help with the funding. We have a line, but we haven't tapped into it, if that makes sense. We just have used
Yeah,
our internal.
because
But as
that's really crucial in terms of growth and where you want to be. So the understanding of money and how to leverage that versus the risk that's associated when you're using your own money, like
oh,
the house
yeah.
money, so to
So
speak.
what talk about the diversification. So one of the benefits of the custom, I just mentioned 10, 2 are specs. The other 8 are clients, and they own the lots. It's a draw basis as far as they do monthly draws. So they're financing the build, which is completely different than on the traditional side of the business where we do have a line of credit and there's exposure and risk and all the things that go along with that.
Yeah, no, it's that understanding of money. It's a vehicle to be used.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about you're established. You've been at this a while. You've become a savvy leader in the company, right? You've taken your lumps. You've seen some things, stories to tell. What would you tell people that are in the trades right now that want to make that transition from being a contractor? Now they're looking at building. Like typically, you've got a guy that's pouring concrete that says, I can do this, or it's a framer traditionally that says, I want to do more than framing. I want to get into the actual all encompassing side of the build. Any like sage advice that you could share?
Put on a shield. It's gonna be tough. I would say I have been really blessed in that my parents did support me from a financial perspective. So they almost were my bank in the beginning. So I didn't have to go through. That's a whole nother level of respect that I have for people that don't have that resource to tap into. So to be fair, I haven't been in those shoes, but I would say from the experience that I had is start small. Don't take on more than you can chew and develop just I would say find a role model or someone that you can tap into, a coach that can help coach you through, whether it be someone that's in another market and can kind of give you sound advice of, okay, here's what I'm up against. How have you handled this? There's so much to be said about just working and searching for people that you can trust and get counsel from and help guide you through the process.
It's like you literally teed up the shot. I just did an interview 2 hours ago with the professionalbuilder.com. These guys are out of New Zealand, of all places. And I
Yes.
connect. Yeah. So I was actually with Marty in Vegas last week.
Okay.
And so we hooked up via Facebook, sent messages back and forth. and their company integrity, what they stand for, aligns with Sound Capital, the guys that keep my lights on to do the podcast. And then that facilitated a meeting in Vegas to see what is it that we can do on a more, what's the word, intimate level. Is
Yeah,
there
granular
some way that we
level.
can complement one another?
Yeah.
And you want to talk about a bunch of hooligans and clowns, and they're just so much fun.
I've met
And
them, and I don't know, I'd love to talk outside of this podcast. I saw them speak at the Builder Show and was really impressed, and I was curious.
well, I was saying, what do you do? Like in New Zealand, you're talking about kangaroo. Well, that's Australia, but still, yeah, like, kangaroo. What are you telling American builders what to do? But they've
Okay,
got about 1,000 clients in the U.S.
they
So,
and tell me, again, I would be mindful of your podcast here, but I'm curious, like,
yeah, we'll
how
talk
does
about
that
that in
work?
depth. Yeah, they've got 40 coaches, and they literally will take your business. So you raise your hand and say, "I need help," and rather than identify a thing, they'll say, "Okay, young lady, sit down. We'll wipe the tears away. Let's take a deep dive into the business." And they look at all aspects of it, and kind of like what we were talking about at the beginning, that when you're juggling all plates, if you take what you're making per year, let's say, 200,000, good year.
Mhm.
But when you divide that up by the number of hours that you spend, suddenly that 200,000 becomes $20 an hour. It's like, I'm better off at McDonald's flipping
Yes,
burgers because I'll get a uniform and they'll feed me, right? So why am
yes.
I doing this? So part of what they do is, let's start with the triage. Where are you hemorrhaging? What can we do to stop the holes? And then they build on top of that. I was
Mhm.
really, really fascinated by
How
what
did
they
they
offer,
even
but we
s
can.
how did they even start? Like, how
It started with Marty was a builder. He got tired of taking on his lumps, realized that there's gotta be a better way. It's always there's gotta be a better way. It's like the
Yeah.
mousetrap, there's gotta be a better way to catch mice. And that's how it started, but the ascension model is at the point where builders now are coming on board as coaches, but these aren't the builders that have lost 3 fingers and can't do anything anymore. These are guys that are still in the trade, and they
Mhm,
come on because they wanna give back. So they're
mhm.
sharing what they're doing in the streets that's working, but more importantly, what doesn't work, and they've become coaches within the company to help other builders, and it's a
That's really
phenomenal
cool.
model. Yeah,
I
yeah.
love
So
it.
it's yeah, so it's not people that, "Oh, I've never built a house before, but here on chapter 2, this is what you should be doing." It's
Yeah,
got
they
nothing to do
actually
with that.
ironically reached out to me, so I need to circle back.
Oh, just like
It
serendipity.
is,
Wow, or
it's wild.
synchronicity. Wow, 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 okay.
Yeah.
I gotta so here's a question, and I've been thinking about this because you've got 3 generations. If you could get into a time machine and go back to the '70s, and your grandparents who started off the company, they're on a site and they're building something. I don't wanna say what wisdom, what knowledge would you wanna share with them from what you've learned
Mm.
now that you think would have an impact on where they were back then?
Oh gosh, I wish you could ask my dad that question. That would be a really good question for him, because 'cause I'm sure he'd have a lot to say. What wisdom would I have? The wisdom would be for my grandfather to listen to my grandmother. Just continue listening. And true story, because similar to my mom, my grandmother played a similar role with my grandfather. She was the one that's like, "Here, go and try this." Told my dad, "Go try that." And so the women, I would just say to my grandfather, like, "Listen to her. She knows what she's doing." And he passed away before she did, and she went on to really build some wealth for herself. It was pretty epic to witness what she did.
Good on her.
So,
I suddenly had this flashback to Twin Peaks, the movie. I just see your father, grandfather, and you guys are the water that's wearing them down in between. It seems
yeah.
so perfect for Arizona. One more question, and then we'll kind of wrap it up here. And not that this is going to happen because you're going to probably outlive everybody, but I want you to imagine for a second that you're at the pearly gates and there's St. Peter standing beside you, and he's got an iPad, right? And right at the top, it says Cammie, life story, and he's flicking through this thing. Yeah, okay. Oh, well, that's interesting. Yeah, and you're looking over his shoulder trying to see what he's looking at, but he's literally going through the story of your life as you're waiting to find out if you're going to be able to go
Mhm.
to the other side. And then he stops and he looks you right in the eye and he says, "No, not yet." What's that thing that not yet that you still have to finish?
Oh god, this is a deep question. I would say giving back. I would say for sure giving back. So, something that had been working on this business, I have a son that's slightly on the spectrum, and it's been really challenging for me to balance my time. And hearing you talk about the company, the builder association
Well,
company that you just
professional
mentioned,
builder. Yeah.
like, that just flooded my heart with the opportunity to help other builders at some point. So giving back, having the time, that's a chapter in my life that I'm looking forward to, being able to help others.
Good answer. Good answer. I asked that question of a guy. His name's Robert Graham. He does a lot of consulting work. Robert's got to be early. I mean, he'll slap me when he sees me, but I'm guessing early 70s. He's got the little bow tie on, and with the National Home Builders, National Association of Home Builders, he brought in 5,000 members
Wow.
single-handedly, right? So there's like a statue of him where birds shit on, somewhere in
My
Washington, right?
god.
Because he's so revered. And I asked him that question, and he stops, and he had this really profound look in his eye, and he says, "Michael, um, I still wanna learn more
Mm,
because I know there's still so much out there. I wanna do more because I still know there's so much more to do." And he says, I wanna be more because there's
oh.
still so much to share with other people." And it's like, I'm trying to fight back the tear,
Yes.
but, just and you're right on the same tack as he was. It's maybe he could have been the forgotten father you never had, but,
Aw.
definitely somebody you wanna hook up. He's in
Aw,
Colorado, but he would, be a good conversation.
awesome.
Cammie, anything I missed? Any door that we didn't open, path that we didn't go down that you'd like to pursue?
No, this is fun. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the conversation and your way of asking questions and your energy. It made it really fun. So thank you for the
Thanks.
opportunity.
So if they wanna find out more about your cadre of companies, where can they go?
I would go to, gosh, I don't know if I would go to Camelot or to Cameron Custom. I will say both. CamelotHomes.com for the mothership and Cameron, Cameron hyphen custom.com for my world.
I'm not gonna say goodbye, Cammie, I'm gonna say to be continued.
Until next time.
Thanks for listening to Builder Straight Talk. Make sure to like, comment, and share this episode on your favorite social media platform. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, available wherever you get your podcast streaming fix. Until next time, keep building smarter. This episode is made possible by our parent company, Sound Capital, funding built for builders.